Shut up and sit down.
By all means, go for it. Have fun. Just leave me alone.
People are coming together more and more and more and more as the government has been failing us more and more.
I'm against being shitty to people.
You can't research your way into understanding somebody.
One way or another, I'd rather have the fight now.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Untitled Live. Today we have an awesome show for you guys about marketing and how to manipulate people in a good way. But first, I got to tell you guys a little bit about Nug of Knowledge. We talk about this every show. You guys should already know most of this, but Nug of Knowledge is an awesome cannabis brand that is selling legal CBD, Delta-8 THC, and other products online. You can purchase it. If you do, use code F4L. It's right there. I always get the left-right thing mixed up because of the mirror camera, but knowledge.com. Check out all the great stuff that they have. Support the show, support free speech media, help support other people in the liberty movement, because everyone that works on this project is part of this movement. And on top of that, a portion of every sale goes to help end the war on drugs, whether that's a donation to Normal or MPP or Legalize Happiness. We've partnered with a couple of different organizations that are helping end the war on drugs. And so you get to buy drugs and help end the war on drugs at the same time situation. So definitely go check out nugofknowledge.com. And again, use promo code F4L. It gets you 10% off. It helps me be supported. It, again, helps free speech media. So go check that out. Today's guest is marketing extraordinaire. She's also the comms director for Tom Queter's campaign, who's been on the show before and has her own podcast called Not Your Boss's Marketing. Liz DelSignore, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I can hear you.
I think we've got a little bit of lag.
Okay. Well, it's, yeah.
So I always like to start out with just a little bit of a lag we've got here today.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was me or you.
Probably me at this point. I have lag in almost every episode of this show. So it's just, I'm kind of used to it at this point.
All right.
But so I always like to start out with just a simple test of how did you find out about libertarianism and how did you get dragged into this shit show called the Liberty Movement?
All right, so I'm going to give you a really short version of the last 12 years. I've been involved in politics since my freshman year of high school. I was 14, so that was like 08, 09 school year. And I had volunteered for Democrats and Republicans, and then about 5 years ago, Trump got the nomination for the Republican ticket. I was a Republican at the time, and I'm like, not really sure about this homie. It doesn't really represent who I am, not really my values. So I started searching for a different home politically, and almost by happenstance, I saw an event for the Libertarian Party in Nevada in 2 days. So I was like, okay, I've heard the name Libertarian, but I don't really know what it is. Let's go check him out. And some of you in the movement will probably know the name Alex DiBenedetto. Well, he was the first person as a libertarian to ever introduce me to the idea of libertarianism. So I show up at this event, and I'm a bit early. I usually show up to things early, and I introduce myself. Hey, I'm Liz, and he's like, hey, I'm Alex. Nice to meet you. What brought you here? I saw a Facebook event. I'm kind of curious what libertarianism is, and then he hands me the 3-column flowchart of Democrats, Libertarians, and Republicans, and I look at this thing no longer than a minute, and I'm like, oh, this makes perfect sense. This is exactly what I am.
Nice. So Alex DiBenedetto, that's awesome. I also feel like very few people say a meeting. In response to that question, most people throw out a candidate like Ron Paul or Gary Johnson or somebody like that they saw something, but it's rarer, I think, for someone to have just shown up to a meeting completely open-minded and us actually get to do our thing in person. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, like, it was a social. It was at this restaurant called Jalisco's. It doesn't, unfortunately, Jalisco's not even there anymore. So I was, it was really good Mexican food. And when I say really good Mexican food, I mean I live in the American Southwest in Las Vegas, so it's authentic Mexican food. And so, like you get me Mexican food and drinking, yeah, I'm gonna go.
That's awesome. Yeah, we need to do a lot more of that kind of stuff where it's just like having fun. And I think the Libertarian Party, because we have so much like business and bylaws and all this other shit to work out, we have a habit of not also doing the fun stuff, because it's like, oh, we already have like 7 meetings this month that's libertarian themed. Let's not plan another event. But those other events are what get normal people
Yeah.
to show up. To a business meeting, because I don't even want to go to a business meeting.
I don't even want to go to business meetings, and I run them. Like, I'm of the opinion at least half of meetings should be an email, so...
Oh, I love hearing you say that. All right, so that's how you got into libertarianism. How did you get into marketing? What was your first gig in that world?
So, I have to kind of rewind a little bit here, because I will say it found me, I didn't find it. So, what had happened was my first business was actually math and science tutoring. I focused on grades 6 and up through college. I had a couple employees. One of them was in college, and he was taking like Calc 3 when I hired him. So, he could more than tutor an average high school student or, a freshman level college student. And so I don't know if you've heard of SCORE, but SCORE is a resource partner with the U.S. Small Business Administration. SCORE is an acronym for Service Corps Retired Executives, although they are rebranding themselves because they're trying to recruit people in business right now so that they can keep current with, industry regulations, trends, and all that. And so I found SCORE, and I was like, I need help with marketing. So I was actually on the other end of this at one point. And I remember I had the mentor, the person on the other end of the table. He worked in construction. Like most of his career was like construction, but he had to do with like marketing. And so he gave me a bit of advice, and I almost became obsessive with learning marketing. Like it wasn't something that like I would have voluntarily chose right at the gate, but I wanted to learn so much about it, and I already had been programming for a while and building websites and things, that my fixation on it actually kind of made me good at it and chose it as a career.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I think that the obsessive nature and like the really like dig all the way into something, kind of like hyper focus ADHD, something that I've noticed a lot in the industry. We all kind of share that trait a little bit.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the ADHD, because it's not that we can't focus, it's the lack of dopamine regulation when you think about it. Because, like, dopamine causes you to do the work. Like, if we were in hunter-gatherer societies, we would have, like, the men would, like, traditionally have to go and forage and scour for, like, food and resources and all this during the day, and then, the female or whatever will take care of the kids and whatnot. And even if you're really hungry, when you start to go hunt and forage, the dopamine rush, like, and those rushes throughout the day will motivate you to keep doing the work until you achieve your goal. And with ADHD, it's a lack of regulation of that dopamine, because we both know that when an ADHD person wants to focus on something, it's a hyper focus. Like, everything physiological almost goes to the wayside. My appetite goes to the wayside. Anything else goes to the wayside. My cat could be screaming at me from the other room and I won't hear him. Like, it hyper fixates. So it's not that we can't pay attention, it's the lack of dopamine regulation.
Yeah. And I have noticed over the last few months for myself that I used to do that a lot. I used to like really obsess over things, and whether that's like video games or a book or whatever. I was one of those people that, like, once you started reading the book, you had to finish it in basically one sitting. And I figured out how to stop myself from doing that. And now I can't do it again. Like I've turned off I've tried, at least for the most part, to turn off the obsessive side of my brain. And now it's like I have a 6-hour task in front of me and I can't get back into that groove that I used to find when I was in school, because I've just been like so against it and like trying so hard to not be like that I've turned into all the downsides of the ADHD with not being able to pay attention without that great hyper focus ability that we have.
I think it's also how you're channeling it. Like, you have to really be motivated to do whatever it is. You know, if it's a menial task, you're really not going to care. Like, sorry, but I'm really bad for not doing laundry and letting it pile, like, quite literally. So, I'll put it off until, like, I'm out of clean clothes to wear, and then I'm like, shit, I need to do laundry. And then I hyperfixate on, like, I do, like, 5 loads of laundry in the day, and then it's like, wait, did I do anything else today?
Right. And then I still never put it away, like, because that's a whole other task.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Do the 7 loads of laundry that it takes and, like, have that going, and then I just have a pile of clean clothes that usually end up back on the floor, and then you're just kind of pulling stuff out. And until you deem it all dirty again and go through the same process again.
Yeah, this is the story of my life. Got a pile on the floor in my bedroom. Oh my gosh, you were laggy. David. Alright, you froze for like a minute.
Yeah. I forgot to switch Wi-Fi's because one is faster and one is more stable. And so I'm usually on the faster one, but I usually switch over to the more stable one for the show because it does that shit and just drops me for no reason.
Yeah. It's fine.
To get back into the marketing, it's funny how often I talk about ADHD on this show. I'm curious for you where you draw the moral line between like manipulation and sales.
Okay. This is a very libertarian response, but it's the voluntary aspect of it. You have to present enough value for the person to be convinced to buy into your service or buy your physical products. Marketing, I don't think that properly done and executed marketing is inherently manipulative. Like, you're basically trying to persuade someone that you have more value to bring to your end customer than your competitor. Mm-hmm. So, and marketers are tasked with figuring out what do people want, what do people like, what are they willing to pay for it, and most importantly, why do they value it? Someone eloquently put it to me years ago, and I'll never forget it. It's cost is the price you pay, value is what the person deems it's worth. So it's objective versus subjective. It's, you may pay, let's say $500 for, or let's just say $400 for an SM7B microphone, which is like the top end, recording microphone, right, from Shure microphones. Mm-hmm. So you may pay $400 plus theft, or for anyone that's not a libertarian, tax, and that's the cost you pay. But the value is, this is, like, to you or I, this microphone has such good input quality, like, it has really good pickup patterns, it's, mm-hmm. super sensitive. It will make me sound better on recordings, it'll be better live. If you do anything like music, like, it's so much easier to record with, in that sense, and integrate with your DAW. You find any number of reasons to justify why that $400 microphone is worth it to you. And mm-hmm. every person is different. So that's how I see marketing. It's very, and marketing and sales. The sales, it has to be voluntary.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I feel like there's a lot of people in the industry that don't operate off of that moral code. But I like the way that you put that. I remember my first really major sales explicit job, because I did insurance sales for a little bit, but I kind of sucked at it and I got out of that pretty quickly. And then I was in retail, which is more customer service than sales in my mind, but I started to dip my toe into commission sales there. But then I was doing telemarketing for finances, and we were brokering small business loans, and there were so many people in that industry that would just, it was all about the money, it was all about the closing. They would give these people loans that they would never have any chance of ever paying back, just astronomical interest rates, and just ruin people's complete lives just for a paycheck. But I would go through with all of my clients and ask them what their return on investment for this loan was. How are you going to make money with this? Because to me, this is $50,000. To you, this is a second fryer at your restaurant. So you can make twice as much food, twice as fast, and make hundreds of thousands of dollars this year that you wouldn't be able to make right now. And I wouldn't let them take the loan if they couldn't give me that return on investment idea. If their idea was, oh, I need this loan to pay off this other loan, or to pay off my credit card, or to, back pay my staff because I haven't paid them in 2 weeks, I'm like, nope, you're already done. I'm not going to let you get a default on my record and fuck up your finances more, which made me one of the lowest sellers in my company. But I also have one of the lowest default rates in the industry. I've only had 2 in my entire career, which is kind of unheard of. The industry average is 2 a month. So I like the way that you put it, that it's the voluntary aspect, and it's the providing value for them rather than just shoving something down their throat.
Yeah, you have to provide value. It has to be worth something to someone. That's what value is. And I don't blame you for making them justify why they need it. A very superficial reason. Yeah, that's fine in the short term, but it really worries me when people don't worry about the long term, or even the medium term. Because if you can't honestly say you need a piece of equipment to be able to produce X as many shirts, or be able to hire more staff, or whatever the case is, why are you even running a business?
Yeah. There's a lot of people that are in business that shouldn't be in business.
Oh, I agree 100%.
It's so fun though. My favorite part about doing that job was that I was living in New York City at the time, and most of my clients were Midwesterners, younger boomers, older Gen X, kind of a lot of my deals went through trucking companies or small town restaurants. And so all these people were felt bad for me because I lived in a commie hellhole. And almost something that you just get trained in sales is never talk about religion, never talk about politics, never talk about anything divisive, just talk about happy stuff. And I would
unless they bring it up first.
Right. I would talk about politics with almost all of my clients, because as a libertarian, I can complain endlessly about the Democratic Party, and they love it. They're just I get the sympathy sell just because I lived in New York, and it was fantastic. It's I was disabled or something in their mind.
So that's funny you mentioned that, because one of my jobs was I was working at a call center doing public opinion research surveys, and they were very much politically driven. Campaigns would pay this company for us to call all around the country, and some of them were kind of interesting questions. You could tell which way they leaned, or if they were kind of more moderate, or at least independent kind of thing. But one of the most memorable was I called this house, and I was looking for the wife. Well, the husband answers, and I'm like, hey, is your wife available? I'm looking to speak to her. And he's like, yeah, sure, give me a second. So he calls her by name, and then she picks up the phone. She's like, "Hello," and I'm like, "Hey, I'm Liz with Microwire Research. Do you have a few minutes to take a opinion survey?" And she's like, "Yeah, sure, but I'm just gonna let you know I've been drinking a bottle of Chardonnay, so I'm gonna be real honest with you." So it gets better. So we had like a handle time. So an average amount of time this call should take. Well, the handle time was like 12 minutes for the survey, or no, it was like maybe 22, right? It was a long. They were fairly long surveys, and they took a bit of thought. Mm-hmm. So if the handle time was 22, I had a supervisor breathing over my shoulder at like 42 minutes, and he's like, "What is taking you so long?" I'm like, "She's wasted."
I love drunk people, especially doing politics stuff, like door knocking. Drunk people are the best.
Oh my god, I was nearly pissing myself from laughing at this lady. I'm just, I could barely breathe. I had to hold my hand over the mic over the phone. I'm like, what the fuck is she saying?
That's great. People, if people talked about politics more while they were drinking or smoking instead of when they were having a bad day and trying to take it out on Twitter, we would be living so much better of a world.
Yeah, seriously.
So, in your mind, what is the easiest crossover from corporate business sales to political kind of policy comms selling?
I think a lot of it is value-based selling. You're in corporate, in business sales, you're concerned with price, how does it fit their need, or whatever the case is, right? Mm-hmm. But in political, it's tearing at the heartstrings of what do you value in somebody potentially holding office. So it's, I'm just gonna make up a persona here. Let's say you have a guy, his name is Brandon, and Brandon has owned, I don't know, he owns a shooting range, let's say. So maybe he's a Republican, has been his entire life. He's probably 45, he's got about 3 kids, he's been married at least, maybe 10 years, since mid-30s. And you're trying to talk to him into becoming a libertarian. So how do you reason with him to see the libertarian view? So if he owns a gun range, he's going to care a lot about the Second Amendment. That's what keeps him in business. Mm-hmm. Being able to get supplies from vendors, being able to sell those, being able to have concealed carry courses if he has instructors for that. Mm-hmm. Being able to run promotions, to have there's a range here called the Range 702, and they have Ladies' Day on Tuesdays, which means the ladies don't pay range fees. So things like that. The Second Amendment is going to be his biggest thing, and he's going to care a lot about proper gun safety. He's going to care a lot about, because he's a business owner, taxes or regulations. How are these things going to affect him, his business, his life? So let's say you ask Brandon, okay, Brandon, Steve Sisolak, gotta hate Steve Sisolak, that's another rant, the Nevada governor, mm-hmm. But it's let's just say let's back up a little bit and say Steve Sisolak was still in the running for governor. So what do you want Steve Sisolak to do? And Steve Sisolak is a Democrat, mind you. Mm-hmm. So what do you have against Steve Sisolak? And he'll tell you, I don't like how he is on guns and all this other shit, and you fixate on the topic of guns. Okay, so if Steve Sisolak were to tighten regulations on magazine capacities, how would that affect your business? Would you be able to have these 20 plus 1, rifle magazines, or would you have to try and buy smaller ones that you may not already carry for these different firearms? And then you get him talking about that. And then what ends up happening is, he would tell you, look, I'm really worried that if these regulations come down the pipe like I think they're going to, I would have to liquidate 30% of my inventory at sub cost And then what happens when you eliminate a sub cost? You lose money. And what happens if you lose money? You can't pay your people. And what happens if you can't pay your people? They get mad at you because they have bills to pay, they have a rent, they have a mortgage, they have kids usually. And then eventually all of that trickles to where, guys, I'm sorry, after 15 years in business, I gotta close my shop. And then you start pulling at his heartstrings. Okay, so what if I said that the libertarians have a better solution to guns? And then he's like, really? What is it? And all of a sudden you've got his interest.
I love that. That was perfect. I'm gonna have you train all of my volunteers and door knockers from now on.
I can do it.
So that scenario that you brought up brings an interesting, more philosophical question to go on a little bit of a tangent. As a libertarian and a partisan person, how do you make sure that we're bringing in people like Brandon without bringing people in that only agree with us on like the one issue? If the only place that we found that common ground was guns, where do we draw that line between like getting their vote or trying to like make them more libertarian, or just be like, yeah, you're cool as you are, just come on over?
It takes a certain amount of emotional intelligence that I think a lot of libertarians lack. Like,
really? No. We're all super social, super well integrated people that know how.
We're definitely not all neckbeards.
No. See, I shaved my neckbeard.
I feel like, there's a certain point you can almost intuitively tell, maybe I shouldn't push that too much more, or, okay, maybe I can open their mind here, because, like, in the example, the Brandon figure I come up with, he's gonna have a lot more than just a Second Amendment. Like, what if, he's got, something that's usually closely related to Second Amendment is criminal justice reform. Because what if he had a cousin that went to prison for a non-violent crime, just selling weed, for instance, which is legal in the state of Nevada, has been since 2018, or 17, and he's gonna care a lot about that, because if you're trying to just sell weed because you need the money, like, why are you being thrown in prison for that? So he's going to care about, he might care about that kind of thing because it's usually related, or they have a reason to care about it. It could be a cousin, or, for school choice, like maybe he's got kids in school and of course any parent wants their kids to do well in school and go to the best schools they could afford or get opportunities for. He would care about how his kids do in school, and because that affects their future opportunities as adults when they enter the workforce. So it's a matter of like figuring out like usually people have like a top 3 to 5, but typically there's one big one that like stands out above all. I bring up guns, but my biggest one is actually school choice, and I mean it across the board. Like, parents should be able to, take their kids wherever the kid wants to go. If that kid wants to be a doctor, they should be able to go to a magnet school and not be discouraged if that kid really wants to go. And when I say I believe for across the board, I mean we need to stop demonizing the trades. The trades are begging with hire-on bonuses right now to get people. And they have been for at least 5 years. Why are we taking a shit on the plumbing trade, on the restoration trade, on electricians, on any of these things? They make 6 figures a year when you do it correctly.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you need to go to college and have like 2.5 kids and have white picket fence suburban America lifestyle. No, the hell you don't. We need to stop demonizing the trades and say, hey, look, if you can pick up a trade, good for you. If you want to go to college, good for you. But make your own choice independent of what society shoves down your throat.
Amen. And I think it's funny because you mentioned the white picket fence and the 2.5 kids. I feel like, at least in my personal, like, fairly widespread. You know, I've done a decent amount of traveling and living around and working in different industries, but still just my 24 years of experience. Most of the people I know that have a white picket fence and 2.5 kids and a 10-year marriage are in the trades. The people that I know that work in an office job are like 40 something and still single with 17 cats and and this is a dude I'm talking about, right? Like, you know, it's just like I feel like the people that are like the American dream, like normal, like what we picture as that perfect life, most of the people that have all of the rest of that life have a trade job.
Yeah. You know, I know I have a friend of mine, and his dad's in the HVAC business, and his dad was making 6 figures a year, you know, at one point, and mom doesn't even have to do jack shit.
Yeah.
And he's my age, like.
Yeah, I grew up in a single person income family. My dad isn't in a trade job; he's a computer programmer. But like that used to be super popular, and the ability for a single income family to exist was more widespread. But if more people went into the trades, we'd still be able to do that. Like you're saying, like you can make almost 6 figures right out of trade school. You're like 21, 22, making 80 grand a year. Like that's more money than most 20 somethings know what to do with. And
yeah.
A lot of my friends that did it, you know, they were dumb a little bit, but who cares? Most of them like have fucking houses now. Like I'm 24 and more than one person that I graduated high school with owns their house.
Yeah. I mean, I remember I matched with a guy on Tinder a few years ago, or not Tinder, was Hinge. And he told me he was an electrician. I'm like, you know what, dude? Good for fucking you. Like, you know, good for you going into a trade. Like, you'll never be without a job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a big chunk of the demonization of trade jobs is it's a little bit more widespread of an issue where our generation, and even more so the Zoomers after us, are taught that discomfort is like the worst thing possible. Whether and that's like across the board. It's like whether that's just like temperature, like is a weird thing that I've noticed. Like my parents, like you can turn the heat up or turn the AC on, and it'll take a long time for one of them to complain that they are hot or cold, something like that. Me and my sister will like, oh, it's 71 instead of 69. It's too hot in here. And like, I can feel the difference between that. And, you know, there's just so much more obnoxious neediness, I think, for our generation. And, you know, we have Spotify and Apple Music rather than the radio. You know, we can listen to whatever we want. We can watch whatever we want on demand. Like we don't have to wait for anything, you know, and we're encouraged to go into these jobs where we just sit at a desk in an air-conditioned office, and, you know, we never break a sweat, like, and unless we want to, and go to the gym, and we do it in a controlled environment. And even that's kind of, it's more for the Instagram posts than it is for the actual workout. So I think that just the idea of like being a construction worker and being out in the hot sun and dirty and coming home with black hands and feet and, you know, blisters is just not an option for us. We see that as like, that means you lost the competition. Of
actually, my roommate is in restoration. He's doing like, he's outside all day long. Like that's what my roommate does.
Right. And it's not a bad job either.
No.
Like I've worked manual labor jobs, and like the job I used to have on a farm was probably the most rewarding shit I've ever done. Like there's like 8 different like full-on tasks that you get to cross off of a checklist every day. It's not just like, did you respond to enough emails? The thing I hate most about office jobs is that it's never done. Like it's just, what did you get done for today? And then what's tomorrow's task now? Like you always have a giant to-do list for tomorrow when you're clocking out, and it sucks.
Yeah. I can understand both sides of that. Like, you know, I'm outside a lot because I play soccer, I referee soccer, so I'm basically brown like a Mexican. Like, it doesn't seem like it on the camera, but I'm brown like a Mexican usually. Especially like my upper body, like my forearms are just brown. but that's because I'm like outside a lot. But I like going outside for that, especially now that it's cooling down and it's not 1,000 degrees in Satan's asshole outside. Because I live in the Southwest.
Yeah, I could never. I really can't live in the South. I just spent 2.5 weeks in Mexico, and I was dying. Like,
I drove through snow yesterday and wanted to off myself, so.
It feels like we're getting about to that level in New York. Like, the last 2 days have been perfect. Like, my favorite temperature. It's like low 70s and sunny. And there's like 1 week of the year where I actually enjoy the weather in New York. It's always either too hot or too cold, which goes back to my point of like, I'm a little bitch when it comes to temperature. Like, I really am whiny when it comes to, and like, it has to be like right in this tiny little spectrum. Otherwise I'm complaining. Maybe not out loud, but definitely in my head.
Yeah. And on social media.
And on social media. Of course. What else is Twitter for if not to complain? I literally will write a tweet about something before I even like call my dad or my and, like I will bitch about something on Twitter and then try to solve the problem. Even today with Amtrak, I was on hold with them for 45 minutes. They never ended up picking up the phone and I just gave up. And the whole time, just live tweeting my entire experience.
I mean, what else are you supposed to do when you're on hold, though?
Right. At least they were playing Phantom of the Opera for the hold music, which I'm a fan of. So I was like, it could be worse. It could be like really obnoxious, like uppity jazz, like shit.
I would prefer jazz over Phantom of the Opera.
That's fair. You're entitled to your incorrect opinions. It's all right.
No, I saw a live production of Phantom of the Opera at Cirque du Soleil. And Cirque du Soleil usually has really good live productions. I mean, they've done an Elvis one, they've done a Jersey Boys one, they've done all sorts of different productions. And my mom dragged my dad and I against our will to go see Phantom of the Opera. And my dad and I were just like the whole time like... If you can imagine like little 9-year-old me just being like...
That's great. I was right about the same age when I saw it live for the first time. Or the only time. I don't know why I said first time. I've only seen it live once. We were in London and got to see it at Her Majesty's Theatre. And that was actually really dope.
Nice.
I lived in New York City for 4 years. I've never seen a Broadway show. But I've been to Her Majesty's Theatre in London, because that makes sense. My parents do traveling different than I do, that's for sure.
I mean, like, I'm a comms director for Tom Queter. I don't even live in New York, so...
This is true. So, speaking of which, how'd you get roped into that? And how's that going?
So, I think we both know, like, the cult that Tom has got on Clubhouse.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just about every room someone's in, even if Tom's not there, and especially if Tom's not there, it's like it'll just be dead silence, and it's like, hey guys, I just wanted to let you know you should support Tom Queter at TOMFOR52.com. and then here's Matt Lacey, and so, like, there was, like, that cult following, and so, you know, Tom and I will just talk about whatever, and then he's like, I need volunteers, and I was like, you know, I would probably actually be pretty good at comms director, because that, you know, marketing and, like, outreach and messaging is my background, and, so it took a couple of weeks to kind of figure things out, but he's, you know, at some point, Tom was just like, okay, so, here's how you talk, like, you know, I'm sort of trying to get into the swing of how to talk like him, but I'm getting used to it now. Mm-hmm. And so now I run all his social media, so if you guys follow Tom52 on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or LinkedIn, it's your girl, like, posting everything. And so, I had access to his website. At first, it was just going to be, like, social media, like, he kind of recruited me for social media at first, and then I'm like, you're kind of doing me a disservice by not letting me just do comms in general, because I have a lot more to offer than just posting.
Yep. A lot of people don't realize what skill sets those two jobs are, or like how different they can be, and way too many campaigns like put their marketing people in just social media, and it's like, oh, they're really good at Twitter, so let's just let them Twitter. And there's so much more to a comms director job that people, I think, just most of the libertarian just doesn't understand the job title of comms director. It's I don't even know how to explain the wrongness that we have for that job, but and I'm not gonna throw shade at any of the people that I've worked with by name, but I've been on a couple of campaigns where we either didn't have a comms director, just straight up non-existent job title, or the comms director was like complete like anti-social, like barely knows how to talk to people, but because they're anti-social, they got decent at social media, and so they're just kind of thrust into comms director, which really just means social media director on most of those campaigns. And there is no like email marketing, there is no like rewording of the website. That's the policy team's job for whatever reason. Like all of these, the job descriptions are just scattered and fucked up compared to what a company would understand.
Yeah, you have to run a campaign like you run a company, and I think most people, like, I'm sorry, but I don't think a lot of libertarians, unless they've got hard like business management or even entrepreneurial experience, they wouldn't know how to run a lemonade stand. And like, I mean, just for like just a microcosm example, like a lemonade stand, okay? Like, you need to have enough supplies. You need to have enough pitchers if you sell it by, you know, through the glass, or if you decide to bottle it and sell it by the bottle. I mean, that if you have like enough lemons, you have enough sugar, water, obviously, like, you know, that's not, you know, water is water. But like, figuring out where to place that booth, figuring out how to design your like little header, your sign thing, how you are going to get people to approach you. Are you calling out for them, or are you expecting them to 100% approach you? What happens when you have to take a piss? Do you let someone else man it? Do you just leave it there and hope no one steals your shit? Like, I mean, just something like a fucking lemonade stand. Like, you know, I'm going into all this just as an example, because it's just like, it requires a team, but your comms director, it has to be someone people actually like. Like, it can't, you know, like, I make friends, I make acquaintances, I make networking connections like the back of my fucking hand. I've been networking for 6 years. And so I know how to get people to talk, to where, like, okay, so, you know, what are you, if I'm at a networking event, what are you looking for out of this? What kind of people are you trying to meet? What do you do, and what do you do for your business? How long have you been doing it? What are your other hobbies? You know, how do you spend your time? I want to know the person, and if I only have a limited amount of time with them, I'm trying to get basically as much bang for my buck as possible to get the most information out of you. So if I want to do business with you, I know how to do business with you. But if I don't do business with you, how do I connect you?
Yeah. Because that's always, like, they always have more friends that you can meet, and you probably, if you can't utilize that friendship for money, one of your friends probably can. And like, that's one of my favorite things about networking, is getting to connect other people. I do that so much more than I actually work with people at this point, especially because I've been so invested with politics. I haven't done that much business stuff. Yeah, just being able to be like, hey, I think you might really like this other person.
Yeah, and great. And something else that I think people need to start reframing how they see it is urgency. Like, you may not need someone right now. So let's say, like, you know, someone, like, let's say someone sells, like, for my business, I do digital marketing. So let's say I was thinking about having a server one day, like a tech server. Guys, I'm recording. I can't be having kids right here. I didn't even, I usually actually don't want kids in my house. You didn't tell her? I'm sorry. So, where was my train of thought, David?
You were if you were thinking about purchasing a server.
Okay, yeah. So like, let's say I'm thinking about purchasing a server, but it's not an immediate need. Maybe I need to save my money. Maybe I need to, compare a few different products, whatever it is. And let's say I meet someone that sells those servers, right? Like they sell them wholesale. Like it's called a channel where you get it through the IT channel. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't have a need for that person right now.
Yeah.
But I will in the future, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I have an interest in getting to know them, so I can, if I find someone that they want to network with, that I can refer them those people. And then when I do have a reason to ask for their services or products, then the relationship's already there. And they're willing to do more for you. Because they're like, oh yeah, Liz, I like Liz. What do you need?
Yeah, and it's so much more fun to work with friends, or at least like mild acquaintances than strangers. Because one of my least favorite situations to end up in is like, I need a service and I don't know much about it and I don't know anyone that does. And I'm just like Googling something like where to buy like I hate that. I will go out of my way to hit up somewhere that someone recommended.
Yeah.
I will make a Facebook post or something before I ever ask Google, because it's just so much easier to have a starting point at least. Cause
I do it all the time.
Yeah. Even if the person that you get recommended to can't do the thing, at least now you're like talking to a person that provides the service and you can be like, get a better understanding of what you need, where you need to go.
Relationships are like, the bread and butter of society, whether that's romantic, whether that's platonic, whether that's business, like, it doesn't matter. Like, humans are social animals. Yeah. And, if you're messaging in a way that people don't resonate with, what are you messaging? You're not.
Yeah. I want to go back to your lemonade stand analogy, because I think you mentioned two really interesting things. One was like whether or not you're going to sell it by the cup or by the bottle, because I feel like with the Libertarian Party in your analogy, somebody would make a sign that says X amount of dollars per cup, and then somebody else would bring a bunch of bottles because there's just no communication. And also you were talking about like, are you reaching out to people, or are you just expecting people to want lemonade and know where to find you? This I'll throw shade at a specific person just because I don't know who he is or his name. I just know that this is a person. I went to the New York State Fair with my family. We just went for one night for a concert. It was the only time I went there, so I didn't help out with the Libertarian booth at all. But I went to go to the booth to see if any of my friends were working that day, and there was one dude, and he was sitting down on his laptop and did not acknowledge a single person that was walking around the fair, including myself. So I walked by and I was like, hey, and just kept walking and I was like, never mind. I'm not even I felt really awkward. I didn't want to just walk up and be like, hey, I'm a libertarian. Nice to meet you. I'm going to go do other things. Have fun working. So I'm on your state committee. You should probably already know my name. I should be working, but I'm not. Bye. So I didn't want to do that. And there was no attempt for him to talk to anyone that was walking past. Just existing there is not making new libertarians or helping.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you also don't know the whole situation. He could have been having, a really shitty day or week or something up to that point, and maybe he just wasn't, he's not really feeling up to it. He could have been a completely different person after the fair. Mm-hmm. I mean, there is the human element to it is, you just don't really know, and sometimes those people, they're just petrified to, approach people. Mm-hmm. It's not because they don't want to, it's because they can't. Social anxiety is a huge thing.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's scary. It's honestly scary as shit. When you're not used to tabling, you're not used to having vendor booths at fairs, at conventions, at mixers. If you're not used to that, it's terrifying.
Oh yeah.
Especially political. Like you're making people question their beliefs. Yeah, you're gonna probably put them off guard a little bit. Just at the fact you're asking about their political beliefs. I mean, it could be any number of things. Like, I mean, maybe he did that because, he got, like, a booth, like, the last minute, like, something, someone else pulled out, and then the organizer's like, hey, I got a booth, do you want it? Pay me now, and then you'll get it.
Yeah.
I've had that happen. Like, actually, like, the night before, like, I was supposed to go to, like, this expo, they told me, like, a while before, I wasn't, like, they already ran out of booths. And then like 2 days before, the organizer calls me, we had someone drop out. Do you want a booth? 2 days. I don't even have time to go get business cards.
Yeesh. Been there.
It was just really random, and it kind of worked out in my favor like that. But I mean, you just don't know. And if he was he by himself by chance?
Yeah, it was just
okay.
One
okay,
person.
That doesn't help.
Yeah, and it was like a Monday night or something like that. So I'm assuming like the party didn't, they weren't prioritizing staffing the booth at that time. The building was fairly empty. It would have been really slow for him too. So like I'm not actually like trying to throw too much shade because like I've definitely been there. I had a booth at the Young Americans for Liberty convention in Orlando a couple months ago, and I did nothing with it. I wasn't even there most of the time, and when I was, it was like my place to like sit down and relax for a second. And I'm so glad that the booth next to me was Clint Russell from Liberty Lockdown, because he also had like nothing on his table, no cards, no anything, and he was barely there. So like we were just the two podcasters that like didn't show up. and I felt better about myself. But yeah, I can definitely sympathize, and especially with the social anxiety thing. Like that's something I've been struggling with for years. Like selling popcorn for Boy Scouts when I was in 4th grade was terrifying. And I always would like walk around my dad's work with him, and like when I was younger, my dad would like walk into people's offices and be like, hey, my son's selling popcorn. Do you want any? And then as I got older, he would make me do it. And I was like, I don't want to. Like, nope. No, thank you.
I think it's honestly because like it's the initial fear of rejection. But like, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I would argue most guys have approach anxiety with women. Like, oh my God, what if she doesn't like me? What the fuck is she gonna tell you? Fuck off. Like, if she doesn't like you, she won't engage. Or worst case, she'll tell you to screw off.
Yeah.
Like, or I'm not interested, or I have a guy, whatever the case is. That's the worst that can happen. Like, initial approach. So I will say that it's more helpful and even beneficial if you're really quiet and you're in the liberty movement, you're like new to politics even. I like to say have an extrovert adopt you. Someone else who can do the talking, and then you can start studying them to see how they talk, how they interact, how they move, how they feel, the questions they ask. And I'm usually kind of the extrovert doing the adopting. Because like the best way to learn is by seeing and doing it. Initially you're going to watch it, eventually you're going to do it. And like once you've seen enough of it and you can kind of recall the order of, the series of events by heart, you're pretty much able to do it. Sure, the first time you do anything is absolutely fucking terrifying. But you do it often enough and you'll get used to it pretty fast.
Yeah. It's
just you have to make that first jump, like in real life, and this goes with public speaking too. So I've been public speaking for like 5 years. I actually got my distinguished Toastmaster back in 2019.
Nice.
And that when I gave my first speech, I will tell you, I was nervous out of my fucking skin. So the first speech is called the icebreaker. You have 4 to 6 minutes, and usually they're 5 to 7, but this one's a little bit shorter. I got at 3 minutes and 32 seconds approximately. I didn't even make the minimum, and I was shaking at my knees. Like, you could visibly see me shaking at my knees in front of this room. I was terrified. and my voice was shaking, my knees were shaking. I wanted nothing more than to get off that damn stage. But I went from shaking at my knees and everywhere in my body to I can pull a speech out of my ass and make it sound like I prepared. And, I gunned it for 3.5 years, but, to get that distinguished, and it usually takes the average ambitious Toastmaster about 5, so I did it really fast. But when you start doing something like this often enough and you start getting feedback, what did you do well? We call it the sandwich method. What did you do well? What can you improve on? And something else positive, you have the sandwich. And that actually encourages people. Like, it's okay, so, if I was evaluating someone, I would say, hey, I really liked how you kept your story organized. Like, you kept minimal main points. You explained it in a lot of detail. I could feel like I was reliving your experiences throughout the speech. Something that I really thought you could have done better, though, was more vocal inflection. You seem very monotone, and it's not anything against you. It's just the fact that you need to get used to having the vocal inflections up and down, and to distinguish different people, especially like if you're having a dialogue and it's only one person saying the dialogue, you need to be able to distinguish between the people. So that but otherwise, I thought it was a great speech. I look forward to see how you revise this speech, and the best of luck with your journey. And that honestly will help them, because you didn't crush them, but you gave them feedback.
Yeah, I could not hide. So I haven't actually gone through it, but a lot of my friends have. My dad's in it. I cannot recommend Toastmasters enough to people, especially if they're not comfortable with public speaking. It's the best thing that I've ever seen for helping people break out of that. And I think as much as we joke about it all the time, the fact that a bunch of libertarians have podcasts is also helpful. Some of it can be like learning bad behavior if you're doing your own podcast and you're just kind of free forming, and you don't challenge yourself enough. It can be hurtful, but I think the fact that like a lot of us have now gotten hours and hours and hours of talking in front of the world stage, even if there's only 4 people watching the podcast at the moment, there's still that fear that like anyone anywhere could eventually watch this. And it at least helps you get over the stage fright, I think. Yeah. And in your own like bedroom, so it's kind of best of both worlds to kind of ease you out of that. I remember the first speech I gave on Tulsi's campaign, I was shitting myself. And I've done public speaking a decent amount. I did really good in college at like speeches and stuff like that. Like presentations was always something that I was pretty good at. But the idea of speaking like on her behalf
and off the cuff.
And yeah.
You probably had some preparation in college, right? Yeah.
I had like maybe a week's notice that I was gonna have to do this, and it was just so at the end of her stump speech, we would have somebody get up, and that was a volunteer, and talk about how we got involved in the campaign and like what more we need, and then give like a little push for people to fill out like the volunteer sign up cards that we handed out. So like I've seen the speech done a bunch of times. I've already been thinking about like what I would say if I got to do that. And I tried to like memorize something. I was just like running through it in my head like 1,000 times. And it was always different. Like every time I would just like go outside and take a cigarette break, and I would just try to like plan out exactly the perfect thing that I would say. And it was horrible. I didn't do that bad. I was really quiet. I didn't hold the microphone close to my face, which was an audio tech before anything else. Like I know better than that. And voice was shaky as shit. Then, but I did well enough and ended up being their deputy volunteer coordinator. And so that became my job most nights. And so by the end of the campaign, I was just, like you said, just pulling shit out of my ass. Like, we found out that the volunteer that we were going to have do it tonight can't. And now I have 20 minutes to think of a new story that these people haven't heard yet.
Yeah, like what usually has helped me, because I used to write out my speeches, and sometimes I still have, but like 85% of the time and up, I might have like 3 or so talking points like on my phone or on some sort of small scrap of paper, and I mean like this small sometimes, like just write down like a couple things and that's it, and then I'll just occasionally refer to it. But those have been the best speeches when you don't have something prepared, because you can speak completely off the cuff, but most importantly from the heart. When you're passionate about something, you can move crowds of people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what definitely like writing out talking points is helpful, because there's nothing more annoying, at least to me, than like getting off stage and going, oh shit, I forgot to say that.
No.
Like that drives me absolutely insane. And I do that on podcasts too. I'll be like, oh man, I forgot to ask them this one question because I forgot to write the questions down, or I did write the questions down and then we just got to talking and I threw my notebook over on the bed and forgot to look at it. So I think thinking about like all of the things that you want to touch on in your however much time and planning that out is good, and planning out your transitions between them, even down to like the exact phrasing. I'll do that with my questions. I'll write down exactly how I want to say the sentence before to kind of lead into the question, switch topics, or like give a precursor about like, well, you're working on this, and this, and, you know, talk about them a little bit. But reading it in real time is never a good idea.
No. Just don't stare at the piece of paper. You need to make eye contact with your audience. But speaking of podcasting, I'll give you kind of the insight of like how I actually go from ideation to final publication of an episode. So I don't know how much research you did into my podcast, but I have a co-host, and her name is Larissa Cox, and she is Canadian. And
I noticed the logo.
Yeah, and so the logo here is lips because it represents talking, and then the 2 countries here. So ideation to production, here's how it goes. We decide on a topic for that episode, and we'll create like, you know, like a cloud word processing doc for like a rough script idea, like an outline. And we'll initially kind of write out like a back and forth of like an introduction. We don't go like to the word, but usually the same, you know, the general idea of it. And just this last episode that we're going to be recording on Saturday, it's about MarTech stacks, if you're interested in that. Software stacks.
Nice.
And we got some cool shit planned for December too. So what we're going through all this, like all these tech stacks, and we got like 7 pages single spaced of just notes. Like, you know, I have like the charts, like just for my tech stack and hers, they're like this tall. So like half a page each. And then we have notes on like different stacks of like, you know, marketing agencies, a corporate tech stack, like, you know, things that don't quite fit into other categories. We'll write all these things out, like, you know, as much objective information as possible. We did an episode on social media. We did literally, or actually, no, episode 2 was called Generational Marketing. We went from the baby boomers to Zoomers in this episode. Nice. We went through their socioeconomic characteristics. Like, baby boomers hold 65% of the world's wealth, not the country, the world. And like their buying behaviors, like they're not the greatest with technology. They tend to use like newspapers and more traditional media a lot more. Then we went through buying behaviors, normal characteristics like age and, you know, when they're around, but also, most importantly, how to market to them. We did that for 4 generations. And we had this massive just chart of like, you know, notes and just bullet points and, you know, and then the next episode was about social media, and then we kind of tied the 2 together of like, oh, mostly, you know, millennials and Zoomers tend to be on, like TikTok, or boomers have a higher likelihood of being on Facebook because it's the most prevalent platform in terms of market share and things like this. Like, we do so much research and effort. Like, I did the math, and we put 7 to 10 hours a month into our episodes.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Like, between ideation, between scripting, then recording, then me editing, then, publishing social media, uploading it to Anchor, like, everything.
Yeah, and that's something not a lot of people think about when they start a podcast. I know I didn't. When I started, I was like, oh yeah, I can talk into a camera. Especially, what we were talking about with me being a public speaker. I started the channel while I was running for office just to get content out there, and then I started back up after Tulsi's campaign. So I'm like, yeah, talking is something I'm good at, especially talking about politics. And then I had to like write things and research things and edit things, and I'm not good at editing things at all. My three like worst skills in at least the ones that I noticed that I suck at because I have to do them anyway are graphic design, video editing, and web development. And I had to do all three of those things for when I started my show, and it sucked. I was so bad at it, and it took so many more hours because I sucked at it that just throwing an intro and an outro onto just an interview was like a half an hour process for me. It should be like 3 minutes.
Yeah. Who I really like that puts a lot of time into her podcast is Eskimo Libertarian Nalik.
Yes.
She has like amazing amount of detail in like her show notes, and she's always talking. She talks about it even Clubhouse. I adore the woman. She's incredibly intelligent. But that's one thing I like about her and that I relate to her is like we both put so much time into like research into our episodes, and because Larissa and I only release once a month, we can have all this information. Like it's not like you, like we have like every week. I would not have all the time to do this every week.
Yeah. Because
Larissa, she works an ungodly amount of hours. I work an ungodly amount of hours. I'm helping grow the Libertarian Party and abolish the state. Like, I'm busy. But like, once a month, we can groove with that, and it comes out good. And actually, here's a story about something that happened to her at work. So Larissa, she works in corporate marketing. She works for a company called Com100, and it's this omni-channel live chat, like customer experience, like software. They're based in basically Vancouver, where she lives. And so she was doing a product demo, like an external sales rep was giving her a product demo. And she was so excited when she told me this story on Messenger, and she's like, Liz, guess what happened to me today? And I'm like what? And how we came up with the podcast was because she was bitching about something at work, and she's like, fuck this, let's start a podcast.
Sounds about right.
And then so the sales rep, the first thing out of his mouth, she says, just before I start, I wanted to let you know I looked you up on LinkedIn and I found your podcast, and I started listening to one episode, and then I couldn't stop listening, and now I'm a huge fan. Holy shit!
That's awesome. I mean, especially if you're putting out like really useful content.
Yeah.
Because your podcast is very much different than the ones that most of the people watching listen to.
Yeah.
It's like really valuable stuff, and you have an entire industry of people who need to know this stuff and spend time researching this stuff. Like the libertarian podcast market, I think, is a little oversaturated. Because it's just a bunch of people talking about the same stuff. So I try to be different with mine. I know that what I'm playing is inside baseball. I don't pretend to be like bringing people into the movement. It's not what the show's about. It's about like, hey, how do people that are in the movement fighting for liberty do it, and then how can the people watching do it better?
That's knowing your audience, that's knowing your market. Like, they already have to be, by having the show, like, the assumption is they're already in the movement, and to some degree they're probably active in the movement, whether they have a state affiliate level position or county, or they're just some sort of volunteer, but they've got skin in the game.
Yeah.
And then actually, if you've wondered about how I got the name of my podcast, it's another funny story. So,
Please.
So what happened there, have you ever had Not Your Father's root beer?
I have. It's delicious, but you can't drink too many of them.
So we were coming up with different names, and none of them were sticking, and I thought of that beer for some reason. And I like the angle of, like, not your father's root beer, not your father's ginger ale. So, and we want it to be about marketing. So I'm like, what about not your boss's marketing? And we make fun of shitty corporate culture. We make fun of shitty marketing. We tell you what you should do and what you shouldn't do on various topics. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the whole premise of the show. Like, we're very non-PC. I even put on the About page, if you are easily offended, do not listen to this podcast.
I should probably put the same warning.
No, because, like, we cuss, we call people out, like, where it's very non-PC. Like, Larissa and I are very type A driven women, and this is who we are. Like, combined, we've got, like, 15 plus years experience in the industry.
Nice.
I'm going on 6 years in the industry in March. And she's got, like, at least 12, probably. So we've got, like, a wealth of experience, and that's where we wanted to take the podcast, is, like, we use a lot of pink to, like, you know, for the feminine aspect, but also I love pink and black. I think it's a bomb fucking color combination. So that's where we went with that one. But that's who we are. That's our brand. Like, we're here to be raunchy. We're here to be non-PC, but we're here to also educate and entertain.
Mm-hmm. Which is a great combination to be able to have. And yeah, I did listen to a little bit. I only made it through a little bit of an episode because, you know, with the ADHD, I got distracted. And
we also have merch too, and I have one of our laptop cases right here.
I love it. Oh my gosh.
Larissa came up with that one, and then I have a notebook. I need to find it, but it says "Proof your boss is an idiot."
So great. I'm curious how I would respond to, like, walking into my office as a manager and, like, looking down at my new hire's desk and just seeing that on top of their desk.
No, what you gotta do is you have to exert, like, big dick energy and, like, take that to the VP of marketing.
Just, like, walk into, like, the fucking board meeting and
yeah.
you know, you've got that notebook
yeah.
and, like, some other papers in your hand. Just
yeah.
set it down. Like,
yeah.
Hi, guys. How's it going? Oh, my gosh.
I designed that one.
Oh, that's so... Now that I'm in the job hunt to go back to working normie jobs because politics is tiring, and now I really want that notebook. But I feel like I should probably wait because I don't want to get fired on, like, day 2. That doesn't sound like fun. I'll just be like, no, this is about my old boss. I promise. This is a book about Tom Queter, not you.
Tom, I'm so sorry.
No, Tom is one of my favorite humans because I can talk shit about him on a podcast and he's not gonna get mad at me.
Yeah,
because
he's probably helping you make fun of him.
Right, always. There's the amount of times where I've, like, not made a joke because I was like, oh no, that might be too far, and then he'll make the joke himself about himself, and then I'll be like, oh, I was gonna say that, but I thought that was too mean. And
no,
at least half a dozen times in our, like, 1.5 year long friendship. It's
yeah. Tom's a great dude. Got an amazing sense of humor.
Yeah, I will never forget the first time I met him in person. Him and I were just kind of, like, standing there talking, and then Sam Robb, who's a pastor from Pennsylvania, is the vice chair of the Pennsylvania State Committee, or regional vice chair. I don't remember what his title is now. And he was one of our presidential candidates in 2020. Just, like, one of the most wholesome dudes in the world. Just walks up to him and shakes Tom's hand, and it's nice to finally meet you in person. And takes a step back and goes, I thought you'd be taller. And for anybody watching who doesn't know Tom Queter, he is disabled and in a wheelchair. So,
and his feet are upside down.
And his feet are upside down.
You know, I actually asked him one time on Clubhouse, I was like, how tall would you be if you weren't in a wheelchair? And he's like, he actually like gave like, you know, an intelligible response like, well, you know, I have some pretty tall people like in my family, and it was estimated if I didn't have the disability, I'd probably be about 6'4". Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
He's a really tall midget. Love Tom. If you guys don't know who we're talking about, the link was already thrown up here, but definitely go check him out. Tom452.com.
Here goes Matt.
I gotta go back to the Matt comment. He's a great candidate. He's running for state senate here in New York State. One of the most likely successful campaigns that the Libertarian Party is running next year nationally. So definitely go help him out. You could use some money and some volunteers and some lots of other stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love those merch ideas. I want to get back to the value added from podcasting, like your version, not this. Because I've actually started getting more into like podcasting groups and like other Clubhouse rooms and stuff like that of people that do like normie podcasts that get more than 3 viewers, and I really like how versatile the industry got like really quickly. Radio was such a closed off market, and then podcasting became a thing like 8-9 years ago and took off really quickly. And I never really got into it because I'm a video person, so I was always on YouTube, but the variety of what you can get was crazy. And now, especially after COVID, it's just insane how many people listen to podcasts and how many people make podcasts, how many people support their entire lives off of their podcast. And I'm Matt with another comment. If you want merch, that's the correct URL.
Let me correct you. If you want meme related merch, go to tom52.com/FTG. You can probably guess what FTG means if you're a libertarian. Something the government. I'll let you fill in the blank.
Well, Tom runs better than the government.
Yes, Thomas Daniel, I run better than the government Queeter is going to be on his fucking name badge at convention.
Nice.
I feel so bad for Kara Schultz already.
That's another person that I can't speak highly enough of.
I love Kara.
Fucking badass. And
Kara,
also,
gives her soul to this movement.
Yeah, and also is funny as shit.
Yeah, she's savage.
She really is. I was not expecting that. I went to the regional training in Virginia Beach. And
I went to 2 of them. I went to Region 1 and 4.
Wow. Goddamn, is that woman a badass. Yeah, cannot speak highly enough of what she's done.
Actually, here's a funny story from the Region 1. Nick Sarwark shows up to Region 1, and so it's coming to the end, like on the Sunday or whatever, and she's like asking for feedback. She's like, how can we improve? Like, while we're filling out like the forms or whatever. And then it was crickets. And then Nick Sarwark comes up to the front room. And he's like, hold on, Kara, let me show you how to do this. If you fucking hated it or want to give her feedback, tell her now. And all of a sudden, 5 hands go up.
That's so great. Oh man, Nick has a way with people. I
thought it was hilarious as fuck.
Right. I'm glad that was a good story. You said Nick Sarwark, and I was like, where's this going?
No, that we were dying. A few there was at one point where Nick was almost on the floor pissing himself from laughing from all the stories.
Yeah, the Virginia Beach one was. I have such mixed feelings about these because I'm so glad that they're happening. Just the mere existence of the regional trainings is such a step in the right direction for the LP that I can't speak highly enough of the people that made that a thing. But the one in Virginia Beach, we didn't have an audio system, so everyone was just yelling, in this very large open room with like a really loud like industrial air conditioner, because it's like an event venue. It's like a dance hall, so they have the air conditioner blasting and it's super loud, and only about maybe half to 2/3 of the room can hear a fucking thing Kara's saying, and she was the loudest. The other people I couldn't hear shit. And the really frustrating part is that there was another event that night that we were like partnered with, and Spike was like the MC for this other event. It was like a veterans thing. And so during all of our breaks, the crew is setting up for this event. So by the time it's like noon, 1 o'clock ish, there's a full audio system set up on a stage right next to Kara while she's just yelling. but we can't use that because it's not ours and it's not for us. And I'm like, y'all really couldn't maybe plan this just a teensy bit better? Like,
right.
Like, have them set that up in the morning, like pay them an extra couple $100 maybe. Like how much would you charge if you were running that company to just set it up a couple hours early? Like, that's not that big of an ask.
And it's not like it's not like you're having like 4 channels of microphones, and it's not like you have fucking condenser mics and vocal mics and all this. You probably have maybe 2 microphones open at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. Like, you could literally just have somebody bring a couple fucking amps, link them to a microphone each.
Yeah, they
even if you didn't even have the PA, like if you had no PA, that would be your minimum.
Right. They tried to buy a karaoke machine about halfway through day 1, and it was a good idea. I will give Melissa the credit that it was a good idea, but the one that got purchased was just not loud at all. Like, it was just a very bad mic or speaker, or both. I think both. And so, like, I think Caitlin was the first one to try to use it, and she just gave up like 2 minutes in, because she was just like she had the fucking mic like right here, and it still wasn't doing shit, and she just gave up and started yelling like everybody else. And I'm like, come on, guys. I have no idea how the one in Atlantic City was this past weekend. I wasn't actually able to make it, but I will again say that I'm very glad that these are happening, because it's a lot of really good information from some of the most accomplished people in the movement, like Kara, like Dan Fishman, like Melissa McCutcherson, Caitlin Cloven. Like, these people are geniuses.
I'm so jealous you got Fishman. I love Fishman.
Dude, Fishman gave me 2 of the biggest like red pills I've ever taken. Were from him in the same night. He taught me why both the education and healthcare industries are fucked up because of the government in one night, the day I met him. And we talked, like, he gave a speech, and then we went out to the bar. And so I would listen to this guy talk for probably like 6 hours straight, and he blew my fucking brain.
Yeah. Fishman bought me a beer on my birthday when I was in DC, so.
Nice.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh my god, I'm running late because my last appointment got out late, and now he's having to like rush through traffic." He sends me his Google Maps link so I can see him coming on the map. It was so worth it though.
That's awesome. I'm glad this conversation is so positive. I feel like I talked a lot of shit about a lot of people on this show, even though it's supposed to be a positive show. I'm glad we're just talking about all the cool libertarians, because there are so fucking many awesome people in this movement.
Yeah.
And way too many times we focus on the like 7 people that like to stir up shit.
Are you among the 7?
At this point, I will concede that. Yeah, I feel like I probably am.
Like whenever you see someone doing this, it's like, oh look, David's stirring the pot again.
I used to be such an anti-drama person, and then all my friends got.
And then you got to Twitter, and then it was over.
Yeah. Yeah, because now I have like grudges and beefs with people that I just should have been ignoring the whole time. And grudges and beefs make you do stupid shit, like intentionally take people out of context and try to blow them up on Twitter.
You were a nice guy until Twitter happened, right?
I was such a nice guy before I gave a shit what my Twitter analytics were, and I'm happy to say that like I still care about this show and I'm still trying to do something with it, but I'm no longer deluding myself that like I will ever be like the kind of person that can like replace their income with sponsorships on a podcast and like do this full time. Like it's not in my plans anymore. And so when I started it was, and so I really cared about like my viewership and my Twitter, and I was like digging through the analytics and the back end of everything and like really focused on doing well on Twitter. And you can't be a good person and do well on Twitter. It's very difficult.
I mean, have you seen Wendy's?
I have, and I love them.
Have you seen Gordon Ramsay on Twitter, David?
I don't think I have.
Okay, so here's what happens. People take pictures of their food that they cooked, and then they at Gordon Ramsay, and hey chef, how'd I do? That thing looks like a crawled into a fucking sewer!
I've seen him on TikTok a couple times with that kind of shit too.
That's my spirit animal is Gordon Ramsay.
I love that guy, especially because I actually went to culinary school. I dropped out, but I went for a while, and the whole time that I was there, so Bobby Flay graduated from the school that I was going to, and they were talking about doing a cook-off between the two of them for like 6 months, and I was like, this would be awesome. And there was like at one point in time, part of the conversation supposedly, like this is just rumor mill bullshit, but it was going to be at the school, and I was like, I would get to see Gordon Ramsay cook off with Bobby Flay. Like this would be the greatest day of my life. And I went super full nerd, and then they never actually did it at all. And I don't even know if they were ever planning on doing it at the school. I think that might have just been someone from the school being like, hey, we're gonna do a cool thing. But
so you're saying someone from the marketing department probably fucked up?
Probably. I don't even know if they have a marketing department. They probably do. I found them on the interwebs, so they must have something.
I did go to Hell's Kitchen in Vegas though. That was an experience. Like you walk in and they actually have the red and blue jackets.
Nice.
I went because the guy I was with at the time had a gift card, so he had to use it. And we were doing like a staycation. Like he got like enough. He gambled enough because he plays poker for a living. We did like a staycation at Caesar's Palace, and then we go to Hell's Kitchen, and he had a gift card, and it was like the portions were kind of tinier than I would like, but I also just eat a lot. But it was really good, and it was really good actually, and it's quite an experience. Like even if you dress up a little bit, you almost feel out of place because it's kind of bougie.
I like that. That's fun for me.
Yeah. It's a really cool experience. Like you walk in and see the jackets, you're like, ooh.
So the number one celebrity restaurant on my list of to-goes, and actually one of my friends just went there and I haven't had a chance to talk to her about it. Eminem just opened a restaurant in Detroit called Mom's Spaghetti. And I really want to go. Like, I gotta go.
Oh my god! Are you serious?
Fully serious. It just opened like 2 weeks ago or so.
Oh my god! I gotta look this up. I'm googling it right now.
Yeah, Mom's Spaghetti in Detroit.
Oh my god, you're not even bullshitting. Like, this is 2131 Woodward Avenue, Detroit, Michigan, 48201, y'all.
I've been looking for an excuse to get back to Michigan, especially Detroit. I was there a lot last year, and I really, really like Detroit. Like, it gets a lot of shit talking, but it's a weird city because of how like deserted and fucked up it was for so long, and it's like on the recovery, so it's not like scary necessarily, especially because I'm from Brooklyn, and so like I'm used to anything like that. But it's weird because you can just like you go from like skyscrapers and high rises, and then you like go over a couple of blocks and there's just nothing on this entire block because it was all houses, and then it got abandoned and they all got knocked down. So there's just a bunch of like 3 houses on an entire block because everything else has gotten demolished. Kind of just weird ghost town vibes.
Oh my god, this is hilarious. They've got a bunch of press. They've got Detroit Free Press, Rolling Stone, USA Today, Washington Post. In the one by Rolling Stone, the title is Eminem's famous lyric about barfing has inspired a new restaurant.
Yeah. I did contemplate that. Like, it's really funny, but like, are you sure that's what you want people thinking about while they're eating your food? It's like,
well, Eminem. So first of all, like, I'm like, wait, what? That's pretty funny. I'm not even gonna lie. That's hilarious.
definitely on the to-do list by the end of the year.
I might go to Michigan just for that, and I never really want to go to Michigan. As you can see by, as you can see by this.
Wait, you're frozen. Oh, well, that's fine.
Watch, someone somewhere is gonna be watching this after the fact and be like, "Triggered! How dare you play an Ohio State fan and talking shit about Michigan?" As he smokes
I'm also an Ohio State fan, so
yes.
Fine. I went to school about an hour away from Ohio State, and that was the year they won the championship. Like, and so like, what was that? 2015, 2016, something like that. So I've never really cared about college football. I grew up in Syracuse. We have a shit team. We've never been successful, and I've never even gone to a game. I'm a big NFL fan though, and so I love football, and I used to play, and so I got there, and all my friends are Ohio State fans. I'm like an hour from there. We could like go up there and tailgate for a couple of games. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm an Ohio State fan because I've never really cared about college football.
Wrong. You're an Ohio State fan because you like the partying.
Well, I'm an Ohio State fan because I wasn't always such a fucking contrarian. And I used to be the kind of person that would fit in with my surroundings. And so I lived in Ohio. Ew. Of course you're an Ohio State fan. And
ew, you fit in with your surroundings? You're terrible, statist.
I used to... So at the time, I was full on, like, you know, we should have just nuked Afghanistan and gotten it over with because we're wasting tax dollars.
But that's not an unpopular opinion.
This is true. Exactly. That's my point. I used to be a hella statist. But yeah, and then I moved out of Ohio and continued to be an Ohio State fan because obviously I'm still not going to be a Syracuse fan. We still suck. And then I lived in Michigan, and by then I was a contrarian, so I enjoyed being an Ohio State fan in Michigan and talking shit.
Your tears are delicious and your parties will die.
Right. But it was great for door knocking because anytime I saw like a bumper sticker or a flag or a thing on the window or whatever from Ohio, I would just, this is my intro line, like, oh, I love the Ohio State thing. You don't see that much around here. And then instantly I'm their friend.
Yeah.
And whatever I say is fine with them. It's great.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's like you find another one like in the wild and you're like Wolf of Wall Street.
So, what is your favorite like business themed movie? Because there's, you know, you mentioned Wolf of Wall Street. There's oh wow, how am I spacing on the fucking Coffees for Closers? I don't remember what movie that's from.
Let me think. I mean, I like Wolf of Wall Street. I'm trying to think of other ones. I was it The Accountant? Where he's like on the spectrum, but he's like ridiculously brilliant. I think that was the accountant. And then what other ones were there? I kind of like The Social Network. I actually read the book behind Social Network. And then I saw the movie, and I can say that they actually did pretty well for adapting it from book to movie. Like, it's pretty on point.
Glenn Ross, that's the name of that movie, with Alec Baldwin. I don't know, that we used to watch like fucking movie clips in our office a lot because my bosses were really dumb and couldn't think of anything original, so we would just watch like the fucking rallying speech from Wolf of Wall Street like every other week.
I'm not sure if I would consider this a business movie. Definitely a crime movie. American Psycho, really good book.
Haven't read the book. Have seen the movie.
I actually haven't seen most of the movie. Like, I watched part of it, but I read the whole book. That's actually my favorite book of all time is American Psycho. And it's not because he's like this serial killer, but it's because by the time you finish the book, you actually feel very conflicted about how to feel about Pat Bateman. It's like you want to feel bad for him because, like, to some degree, he can't actually help his instincts, but at the same time, you want to call him deplorable.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that moral conflict is actually why I like it.
All right, your favorite book is American Psycho. I'm gonna it's red flag, but all right.
I finished it ironically on the 4th of July one year.
So patriotic. I mean, it is a good descriptor of what America acts like. Well named, that's for sure. It is a good. I agree with you though. The kind of like not really knowing how you're supposed to feel about this at the end is fun.
Yeah.
It's a skill for the writing ability that is underutilized and underappreciated, because a lot of times, most movies and books, it's like really predictable, and it just fits into all the norms and everything just makes sense, and the dad is dumb and the mom is controlling and the parents are wrong because the kids are always right, and it's just like the same thing.
Yeah, and I feel like what we appreciate about movies, people don't like really think about how it applies to a business. Like, there's four words every marketer will probably agree with: facts, tell, stories, sell. How do we communicate our experiences? Stories.
For the people listening, do you want to explain all 4 of those words for people that haven't sat through that seminar?
So facts tell. So like they give information, right? That's all they do. They give information. They give context. They give background. They give some level of preliminary understanding of what's going on. But how we tell stories and why we tell stories as human beings is why stories sell. So, just like this podcast, I've told multiple stories, funny stories about experiences. How do you tell your best friend of what happened? You tell them the story. So I started out at this coffee shop, and then, or whatever the case was. And then you're telling, whether it's a sad story, whether it's a funny story, whether it's kind of you haven't made up your mind and the jury's still out how to feel about a story. You tell everything by a story, because the human mind, wants to know beginning, middle, and end. Mm-hmm. That's how we process information. Also, a psychological thing is when we all have cell phones, right? When you give a phone number, do you know why you actually give it in chunks of 3, 3, and 4? It's because the human brain can only process 3 pieces of information at one time.
Mm-hmm.
So you would say like 702, my area code, and 550-7644. That's my business number. I'm not giving out my cell phone number. Jesus Christ.
I was like, are you sure you want to continue down that train of thought? But
no, that's my business number. But But we give phone numbers that way because that's how the human mind takes that information. It takes it in groups of 3. That's why when you have those challenges when, can you read this backwards? Well, the only letters that matter are the first and last ones in a word. Everything else can be jumbled, but the human eye sees the whole of the word, not individual letters. So that all being said, we tell stories because that's how the brain takes in new information.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's how we feel.
Yeah, and facts don't do that. Like, if you're just rattling off, say the facts about a car, if you're a car salesman, just to go the most fucking cliche version of sales, just saying like, oh, it's got a great engine, it's got a DVD player, it's got keyless entry, it's a hybrid, so you'll save gas money. Like, that doesn't fit into that flow that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Of a beginning, middle, and end. It's just a beginning. It's a bunch of beginnings, and there's no end. And without an end, you don't get a sale. Yeah.
And if someone's torn between 2 cars, how do they decide which one? You could have these cars could be $5,000 apart, which in context of car sales, depending who you're talking to, it may or may not make a difference. But if you're trying to get them to get the more expensive car, because obviously you want the more expensive commission, you have to do everything in your power, like I said before, to convince them of its value. So, like, you go to this example of, let's say you have a couple walk in, they're in their mid-30s, they've got 2 kids, another one on the way. So they're trying to upgrade their car to fit more people. Well, I mean, sure, they'll probably both trade off driving it, but let's say mom is probably going to be driving it more because she has to take the kids to and from school most of the time. Mm-hmm. So how do you convince that couple to buy that more expensive car? Oh, well, this car has a lot of safety features, so you don't never have to worry about your kids, because it's already got a lot of these precautions built in. You can keep them entertained with the Bluetooth. That you can hook up your playlist through your phone, whatever the case is. Maybe it has individual AC vents or something like that. I'm just kind of making this up as I go, but if one kid wants one temperature and the other kid wants another temperature, that's not impossible. I'm guessing, right? And then so you start to, and then they have to be able to envision it in their life. Like, how will this make a difference in my life? How do I accommodate for my growing family while also keeping the said family safe? Mm-hmm. And will it break down on me in 2 years?
Yeah. Yeah, and like staying on this, the same random analogy that I got us off of. It's not just about like it's got DVD players. Then you tell a story about the one time that you went on a road trip with your kids and they were watching this one movie and this one thing happened. Honestly, it can be not an entirely truthful story, but
they can buy into it because they relate to it.
Mm-hmm. And then they can actually, like you said, picture this product in their life and the usefulness and the value that it will provide, rather than just, oh, it's a car that'll get me from point A to point B.
Yeah, versus a single person like me, I care that it usually gets good fuel economy because I'm driving sometimes a few hundred miles at a time. Like, I just drove back from basically near Salt Lake City yesterday. It took me 7.5 hours, 356 miles or so. And gross. Yeah, it was terrible. I had to drive through snow. But it's different. It would be different for like someone like me because A, I don't have kids. B, I have literally one cat. So I have to be able to at least, stick him in the carrier and buckle the carrier down so I can take him to the vet kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to have a lot different priorities than someone who's on their 3rd kid.
Yeah. Because
me, as like a single female, and I'm never having kids, I'll take the sports car.
Right. Safety is kind of secondary for those of us.
I'm trying to live. Give me that sports car.
Right. It's not about the length of time that you live. It's about how much you live.
Exactly. So, priorities.
Priorities. 100%. Actually, I've almost always owned like a granny car or a truck. My last car was like a Chevy Impala. It was literally used to be an Uber. It's just like the most basic, like charcoal gray Chevy Impala. It's like
I literally drive a Kia Rio. Like,
nice. The coolest thing I've ever owned was I still actually have it. It doesn't run anymore, but I have an '87 Cadillac DeVille, which was a piece of shit when I got it, and I spent $800 on it while I was in college, and it lasted me like a year and a half, and well worth the money, but it's falling apart. It was falling apart when I bought it, and now it's fallen apart. I'm actually scrapping it tomorrow. So on my to-do list for tomorrow. But yeah, car sales is like the one thing that I've never even attempted. I've never even applied to a dealership. Nope.
I worked in a car dealership for a week, and then I mouthed off to the BDC manager and got fired.
Nice.
I basically called her a dumb bitch, and I got fired.
I couldn't see why.
To be fair, she was super controlling and authoritarian, and my ass ain't having it.
Yeah, that's the one. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm going back to, or attempting to go back to somewhat normie lifestyle, and I'm not looking forward to having a legit boss again that I have to
So stock up on my
nice
merch and then bring the notebook.
Right. Because every job that I've had for the last 2 years in politics, even if I have a direct supervisor or manager or boss that I am supposed to be respectful of, I usually become friends with them and break that barrier down pretty quickly, and then tell them why they're stupid to their face when they're being stupid, because it's helpful. And a lot of people in that industry care more about success than themselves. The candidates are really self-absorbed, but campaign staff type people are usually just better people in my experience. And so
the exception of self-absorbed candidates is Tom Queter. That dude is way too nice, I think, sometimes.
Yeah. He can be. But yeah, what was I saying? So this is why you don't do drugs, kids. Oh right. Yeah, I've just not had that weird boss to employee kind of situation where I have to hold my tongue and be respectful and do the thing even when I don't want to do the thing in so long, and I'm really not looking forward to going back to it.
Oh, poor baby.
It's been so nice just being able to be an asshole to my boss to his face whenever I have to be.
I mean, it builds character,
Right. It also pays better. That's the main reason I'm doing it. I'm trying to move, and you can't move on hey, maybe I'll give you a couple $100 for maybe doing some stuff, maybe every once in a while. Apartments don't like that. It's yeah, here's my pay stubs. It's Cash Apps and Patreon subscribers. This is my pay stub. They don't like that. It's not good.
Yeah, something like that.
All right. Well, before we wrap up, I want to give you a chance to pitch your podcast again and everything else you're doing and the campaign. And you're working with the comms team for National now too, right?
I chair the Information Services Committee at National. So awesome. I chair the IT committee.
Nice. So also maybe tell people how they can get involved or help out with that.
All right. So I'll just give her. So for my podcast, Not Your Boss's Marketing, as you've seen on my shirt, this whole podcast, you can look us up on Anchor, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, every podcasting platform there is. The website is notyourbossmarketing.com. ad/shop if you want to check out the merch, like the notebook that says "Proof Your Boss is an Idiot," because I had way too much fun making that notebook. And you can find us on Not Your Boss MKTG on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Patreon. As far as the my political involvements, please, if you're feeling nice, or at least wanting to engage on social media, hit up LP Nevada, Libertarian Party Nevada. I'm the Clark County Libertarian Party secretary, and as I would be remiss if I didn't plug it again. Tom52.com, TOMFOR52.com. Check out Tom Queter if you live in New York. Please vote for the man if you are in the district. Donate, because Tarj Sisto herself says money is the mother's milk in politics, and you can't be broke as shit and try and win office.
True that.
As far as everything else, that's what I've got to plug, and yeah, I probably should eat something at some point.
We want to keep Liz, not the alter ego.
My alter ego is Laquandra, who's a strong, independent black woman who wants to be fed. My mother is going to die when she sees this video.
Yeah. Hopefully, your boyfriend skips over the American Psycho part, or is.
We say weirder shit.
That's fair. I would hope he knows by now.
I've already got him saying "fuck the state," so.
There you go. I mean, I am all for the relationshiping people into the liberty movement. It's kind of like in the
he's already saying himself Tom52.com, like I've already indoctrinated this man.
There we go. Just brainwash them.
Bring them into the cult on Clubhouse.
Because Christians always say not to be the verses unequally yoked, and you're not supposed to get into a relationship with people that aren't a Christian. I think libertarians sometimes make that mistake, and we look for other libertarians. That's not it. You got to get a normie girlfriend or a normie boyfriend, and then teach them why you're a libertarian.
Yeah,
and make them libertarians. And then if it doesn't work out, you at least did a good thing. You made a libertarian. You can always pat yourself on the back, say, she cheated on me, but at least she's a libertarian.
Yeah, and on that note, I'll close with a John Adams quote: "Liberty, once gone, is lost forever."
True that. We're seeing the outcome of that this year for sure, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon.
No.
All right, well, Liz, thank you so much for coming on. This was great. I love getting to talk about marketing and psychology with people, because way too many of us struggle on that one.
Yeah.
All right. Guys, thanks for watching. We will be back next week with, I don't know the guest yet, and then back in November with Michael Bolden from the 10th Amendment Center. That's the interview I'm the most excited about that's coming up. If you haven't already, click the subscribe button. It should be over there. Click the like button. It should be over somewhere around here. And share this around. And thanks for watching. Catch you back here next time. Until then.
All right. See y'all.
Keep up the fight.